Mistakes have been made. Money has been thrown around, and someone may have to pay the price. Could that person be Vikings general manager Rick Spielman? If so, here are the top 5 GM candidates to replace Pretty, Ricky, Tricky, Spielman. So I will admit, I'm a bit of a GM nerd. I do like the guys who buy the groceries. And some people point out, well, what about Rob Brzezinski? Brzezinski's more of a cap guy. He's a lawyer. He's a number cruncher. He's that. I don't know if he has any inkling towards personnel. We have seen capologists become GMs before. Mike Tannenbaum, notably. Actually, never mind. Don't go full Mike Tannenbaum. Anyway, here are the top 5 candidates to replace Spielman. So number 1, George Paton, Vikings assistant to the regional general manager. Now, this one could be the choice if the Wilfs want to continue stability and have continuity. So Wilfs, as Vikings owners, they do love that continuity, stability, rock solid, blah, blah, blah. And if a change needs to be made, except they don't want that change to be that big, maybe George Paton is it. Now, Paton has had some interest. He's turned down interview opportunities before, mainly from the Browns. Don't blame him. But also, if the Vikings do believe that it's a spot where, okay, so we sort of like where we're at. There's a lot of talent on the rooster, but we need some freshish eyes, especially if they do take a future franchise quarterback, and maybe they don't trust Spielman to make that decision. It could be Paton. And also, maybe George Paton will come out and just completely throw Spielman under the bus. Hey, you know the Kirk Cousins extension and the contract and the Mike Zimmer extension? That was all Rick. I was just like, no. It wasn't me, right? Or hell, maybe Spielman abdicates here. Or maybe Spielman abdicates responsibility to his friend George and is like, you know what? JD's going to be in the NFL next year. I'm just going to take some time off and just be a fan. I'm just going to do that, right? Although, if they want to go full on, like stab your friend in the back, I think that may be a tough sell since he and Spielman have been together since 1990 with the Bears. So, TBD there. And also, if you want to keep Zimmer, which I don't know. This could be a way to do it with that continuity. Next up, GM candidate number 2 for the Vikings that they part ways with Rick Spielman. Ed Dodd's, Colts assistant to the regional general manager. So for the past 3 years, he's been the Colts assistant GM to Chris Ballard, who I have a lot of respect for Chris Ballard. I think he's crushing it with the Colts. Philip Rivers contract. Not ideal, but, you know. Now, he's been seen as a bit of a wonderkin in league circles. He is relatively young, and his name does pop up whenever there's a GM opening. And he's been the assistant to Ballard since they've rebuilt the Colts. They've done a good job there, making the DeForest Buckner trade, bringing on Kenny Moore. Dodds gets a lot of credit for that, bringing in the slot cornerback. Also, he does get a lot of praise for Seattle because he spent almost a decade in Seattle as a scout, as a senior personnel executive. And it's always tough. When you don't have a GM, it's tough to parse out credit. Who did what? Who did this? Who did that? Whether it's a scout, whether it's a director of college scouting, pro scouting, assistant GM, etc. It's tough because Seattle, they had John Schneider in the big seat. They had Scot McCloughan, who we'll talk about in a second, who also had a voice in the room. And so how much credit does Dodds get? Stuff. But also with the Colts, so they've done a good job personnel-wise. Also, was he standing on the table for Xavier? Was he that guy? Or was he against the Philip Rivers contract? It's possible. Next up, candidate number 3 to replace Rick Spielman if they punt on Pretty Ricky. Daniel Jeremiah, former NFL scout as well as NFL Network personality. So for the better part of a decade, he was involved in scouting with the Eagles, the Browns, as well as a bunch of years with the Ravens. Now, he's on NFL Network. He's phenomenal in the draft coverage. Frankly, he's my favorite draft analyst. Also, his podcast, Move the Sticks with Bucky Brooks, former player as well as former NFL scout. Phenomenal. Must listen to content. Also, he is the radio color analyst for the Chargers. Like him and Matt Money Smith. Come on. It makes it a little bit easier to be just a Chargers fan as they just kick in the nuts every single week. Chargers really are the AFC Vikings, but I digress there. So he's obviously learned a ton. Put in the work, put those miles in on no sleep, 150, 200 days away from home on the road. So he's certainly gone through the ringer. This is not a hiring a TV personality to be your GM. This is not a Mike Mayock situation. Even though respect the work Mayock did, he had no scouting experience. Same thing with Matt Millen when he took over the Lions. He was a player, sure. He wasn't a scout. He wasn't a coach. He was just he was the Fox guy. Like he's Daryl Johnston now, just calling games on TV. And then the Lions were like, "Got to get me some of that." But anyways, with DJ, so he's learned from Ozzie Newsome in Baltimore. He's learned from Phil Savage in Cleveland. He's learned from Howie Roseman in Philly. It's not bad. It's pretty good. Also, he has been rumored for some jobs. It was rumored that Joe Douglas, new GM of the Jets, was trying to carve out a role for him. Joe Douglas and DJ go way back like chiropractic in Philly. But he has so many connections around the league. I think that he would assemble a hell of a staff. And also, whenever he assesses draft prospects, he is so into the draft. He still approaches it like a scout. That's why he's so thorough. That's why I trust his voice the most. But you'll get a smart, humble, team first, get after it type GM. And I think he would deserve a shot. Next up, number 4 candidate to replace Spielman if they punt on him. So Thomas Dimitroff, former Falcons general manager, as well as spent a lot of time in the Patriots organization and then going back to the Belichick Browns. And I have always been a big Thomas Dimitroff fan. Now, he initially got his start with the Browns. Well, was a regional scout for the Lions, but then got his start with the Browns where his dad was a scout and executive. So the thing about Dimitroff is that he would work the grounds crew and then scout and grind film and do all that stuff after groundskeeper work. That's how bad this guy wants it. And I also respect his decisions. So Dimitroff is the one who assembled a Super Bowl caliber team. Thomas Dimitroff assembled the talent to get a 25-point lead in the third quarter of the Super Bowl. It wasn't Thomas Dimitroff who blew that 25-point lead, right? So, and also, I like that he's not afraid to be bold. Like, he has made some pretty bold moves for the Falcons in recent years. Well, Matt Ryan was his first pick. First draft pick out of the gates, a 3 overall. Matt Ryan, probably maybe a Hall of Famer. Borderline, but still pretty good, as well as trading up heaven and earth to get to Julio Jones at 6. I love the boldness of that move. Julio Jones is going to be a Hall of Famer. Also, the fact that he's put emphasis on the offensive line, and he's done a pretty good job about it. So Jake Matthews, first-round pick. Chris Lindstrom, first-round pick, 14 overall. People are like, you're taking a guard at 14? Damn straight. Caleb McGarry, first-round pick, traded back up to get him. They're all faring pretty well. Alex Mack, high-price free agent, is working out pretty swimmingly, even as he gets in advanced age. I also love Matt Hennessy, the third-round pick out of Temple this year. I think he'll pan out to be a really good offensive lineman, too. So you love that. So he puts a premium on the skill positions. He was good at drafting quarterback, although, it's pretty easy. And then also puts an emphasis on the offensive line, which is great. On defense, speed and hitting. And again, this is not just because Kirk Cousins made them look good, but speed and hitting. Deion Jones at LSU, Grady Jarrett coming out of Clemson, Keanu O'Neal. Man, that defense is fast. They hit hard, and that's something that I want to see on that turf at US Bank Stadium. But his blind spot could be coaches. So he's hired a couple of good coaches that just plateau. So Mike Smith, Dan Quinn. I feel like Mike Zimmer's in that spot as well. All defensive-minded coaches, all a little bit too conservative for their own good, and they're just like good. They can't get to great, right? But also, he could have the inside track on Josh McDaniels since they had some overlap in New England. So, lastly, GM candidate number 5 to replace Pretty Ricky Spielman, Scot McCloughan. Former general manager. So he's had 2 years as the GM of Washington from 2015 to 2016, as well as various personnel roles. And he was the Niners official GM in 08 and 09. So McCloughan, get this out of the way. He has had some very public issues with alcohol, but if he's got that in order, if he's got his life straight, this man can damn sure evaluate talent. So, the nice thing about GMs is that when they make a decision, that's their decision. The buck does stop with them. Washington's first year took Brandon Scherf at 5. A little bit controversial because Scherf was the Iowa left tackle, but he was going to kick inside the guard. Everyone's like, you're taking a guard at 5? Worked out pretty well. Worked out pretty damn well. And then the Seahawks, he was in the war rooms that took Russell Wilson, controversial pick. You're taking a 5'10" quarterback in the third round after you paid Matt Flynn $10 million guaranteed to replace T-Jack or compete with T-Jack at least. Okay. And then also Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Richard Sherman, the 5th round out of Stanford, the converted wide receiver, Earl Thomas out of Texas instead of Taylor Mays, Golden Tate, Russell Okung, Cam Chancellor. Maybe you've heard of them. All big parts of the Legion of Boom and the Super Bowl runs. Niners, when he was there, Alex Smith, Frank Gore, Vernon Davis, Delaney Walker, Patrick Willis, Michael Crabtree, all all big parts of those Harbaugh Super Bowl teams eventually. So he laid the groundwork. McCloughan deserves a lot of that credit. And also, if the Vikings are interested in Niners defense coordinator Robert Saleh as a potential head coach replacement for Mike Zimmer, McCloughan could have that inside track since they worked together for 3 years in Seattle from 2011 to 2013. So that's it. That's our list of potential GM replacements for Ricky Spielman. Now, other guys, Nick Caserio of the Patriots. I'm not convinced that he would actually ever leave. Elliott Wolf is also on the Patriots, formerly the Browns, formerly this, formerly that, blah, 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 as well as Mike Bohr, Gonzi of the Chiefs, assistant down there. So TBD. But I think if the Vikings were going to break up that holy triumvirate of Spielman, Cousins, and Zimmer, I think Spielman would be the first to go, because it was Spielman who did the extensions for Cousins, not great, as well as Mike Zimmer. That's the only thing that's keeping his job right now. So he may have to pay with his own job, so we'll see what happens. But your thoughts on our thoughts, let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. I'll support that work. Pull some in the Venmo. But until next time, Skol, production value.